Yes, thank you. Thank you for the introduction, and thank you for coming and watching online. I work for the FT, where I edit a newsletter every day. So please subscribe if you haven't already. No, but I'm very honored to have this conversation here with you, Your Excellency. And first off the top, we would like to mention the fact that you are the only ambassador who hasn't interrupted his mission since the war broke out, or since the last invasion in February, because the war goes back to 2014. But seeing all the successive phases, if you want to call them this way, what did it look like from the ground? And I guess the question then is, where are we now, and what does Ukraine need from the European Union?
Thank you so much, Valentina. Thank you, Sławek. Thank you for having me. It's a real, uh, it's a real holiday to me. I must say it's been a long time since I not only I visited Brussels, but I crossed the the border of Ukraine, and it's very interesting. Sorry for my dress code, but I had knee surgery and I still need to walk those shoes. So I look kind of barbaric. Please excuse me. When I when I come back to those months, these are like sequences of emotions, really. The first would be like the pre-invasion time. I felt like a accidental passerby who's watching high-speed train heading toward another train on on uh, on the same rail, and you had this you understand that catastrophe is coming and you cannot do much about it. You so the US, the UK, Poland were among the countries shouting that war is coming, but you realize you cannot stop it or avoid it. This is very frustrating frustrating feeling. I believe this emotion, we share the same recollection. Then I had this bizarre, when it started, I had this bizarre feeling of deja vu, that I actually I watched this movie already. I've read this book. Those pictures, those images are the same, but now it's a real life. It's my first war. Deputy Defense Attaché stayed with me all this time, and at some point we discussed different wars. He said, this is my fourth war. So he was in Bosnia, in Iraq, in Afghanistan, but this is completely different. This is now war with hundreds of tanks. This is not, with all due respect to Taliban or other bad guys, but this is, massive conventional superpower invasion. It was a shock, and it was a shock also caused by the fact that we are in one of the biggest capitals in Europe, and you constantly hear explosions, and you see smokes of after the rockets hitting middle of the 4 million of the city of size of Berlin in terms of population. This is I still had kind of feeling, is it really serious? I mean, maybe it's a bad dream. Then I very quickly I had the pride and hope and kind of assurance came when country by country, government by government, nation by nation started to react with supplies, with accepting the refugees. We were watching all the time. We had TV, internet, etc. So it was very reassuring. I was absolutely amazed with what neighbors of Ukraine, what EU countries are doing, and I realized that this evil that came from Russia provoked much more good, and that we are back on the good track. It will take time, it will take suffering, but we'll be okay, and I still believe it. and then of course, I mean, there were different sequences. Of course, when Kyiv Oblast was freed and we learned about the horrors, inhabitants population in Borodianka, Bucha, Irpin went through. There was a shock. And to finish, I'm afraid we'll go circles. We'll have again same slightly maybe modified sequences of emotions. This war will take time. We'll learn about new horrific crimes in other villages, other towns. We'll have stages of escalation, de-escalation. We'll have great examples of solidarity and action from the international community. But it may be harder to go through to repeat those circles. I think we were very much determined and kind of brave, but then when it repeats and repeats, I'm not sure. I remember. I'm promising I finish now. But there was like 2 or 3 months of peace in Kyiv. The sky was clear. Everything. People came back. Shops, restaurants, everything open. And then the October 10th. And I thought, I mean, I went through this, but then again, I mean, it's too much. Those crazy drones, I mean, this cannot be. I mean, I thought it's you know, that's it. March, April, and now again, and human being is a miracle, also in terms of capability to adjust. Only humans can adjust actually to everything, and I've heard a lot of unbelievable stories Ukrainians went through and survived. But at the same time, human being is thinking too much and is too emotional, and there may be some line difficult for Ukrainian society, for Ukrainian establishment, for Ukrainian economy. But we'll see. Let's be optimistic.
Picking up on this idea of cycles and repetition, and perhaps that the solidarity and unity on the European side might start to not crumble, but at least be under pressure, especially now we have the energy crisis. We have increasing voices even on the other side of the Atlantic, on both sides of the aisle, questioning whether support for Ukraine should continue at the same rate. Do you see a danger there that the unity in the West might start to wobble?
I think we are very well aware that this is not war to grab an oblast or a left bank Ukraine or Ukraine. This is the Russians very clearly warned us what is it about. You remember those draft treaties of mid-December. To make long story short, the Russians said, we want you back to the 80s or turn of 70s, 80s. We want, in a corporative language, we want majority stock in Ukraine, Belarus, Moldova, Georgia, and we want the blocking stock in Central Europe. And we are ready to use military power, violence to achieve the goal. And then we are ready to use nuclear blackmail, like in the 50s, the Cuban crisis. But now we have 9 nuclear countries at least. We have sub-state players ready to challenge superpowers in Africa or Afghanistan. They are also closely watching how Russia is attacking a civilian infrastructure and civilians using terror as a tool, as a political and military tool. So if we give up, or if we distract from Russian aggression, the consequences would be global. We already see other challengers to post-Cold War or post-Second World War order using this shade of Russian invasion to fix their issues in their neighborhoods with military instruments. We see Iran clearly declaring, demonstrating something to their opponents by those drone supplies. I don't think Iran is really cares about the outcome of Russian-Ukrainian war. This is a kind of proxy conflict for the Iranian regime. So we already see tensions growing, not accidentally, parallelly to the Russian invasion, and we need to show those other challengers, sub-state players, that we are ready to sacrifice to preserve the order we all subscribe to, including Russia. Because the alternative is a nightmare to everyone, actually. Also to China, also to Russia. Russia does not, maybe is not conscious of it, but I'm sure Russia would not like to live in a world where everyone is using nuclear blackmail or using tools of a terrorist state or terrorist organization, where treaties have no meaning, where disinformation replaces information, etc., etc. So yes, of course, we are not. There is no guarantee we will do only the right things. I'm afraid that we will continue to make a mistake from time to time. But the cost of destruction, the failure would be greater than whatever cost of our support to Ukraine. It's actually our support to multilateralism, to relationship, international relationship based on treaties, on signatures. If we sign something, both sides or many or all the sides should keep the promise or the commitment. The alternative is a nightmare. So the conflict has this price tag, consequence.
And you already mentioned the elephant in the room, the nuclear blackmail. We saw the ballistic exercise yesterday. I mean, for now, the West seems to keep its wits about it and not believe that this will escalate to the point of nuclear Armageddon. But when you see actors like Elon Musk giving credence to the Russian side, do you see a danger there that some in the West might, capitulate too soon?
Yeah. Nuclear blackmail is like blackmail, whatever blackmail. If you give up to a blackmail, if you step back, you actually encourage the terrorist, the kidnapper or the robber or whatever. It's always a mistake. If we now all turn to President Zelensky requesting to sign a capitulation peace because Russia is threatening us with nuclear tools, let's imagine we are effective and President Zelensky says, okay guys, if you insist, I'm capitulating. This will not produce sustainable design. From the early stages of war, different leaders issued different statements like, we cannot humiliate Russia. Russia has to save face. Russia cannot be strategically defeated, etc., etc. Pope Francis, presidents and leaders of different countries. But I have never heard, and this is intensively discussed then in Kyiv among us, among the diplomats. But I've never heard nobody who would offer a sustainable deal. Let's say, okay, let's compromise. Let's immediately stop fighting. But there is no convincing idea. I've never met such an idea, because and the problem is not President Zelensky, it's President Putin, because he's not fighting for Kharkiv Oblast or Zaporizhia nuclear power station. And there is no room for negotiations, actually. Can we sign a document that, okay, Ukraine no longer exists, Poland becomes half a kind of protectorate? Would that be enough for the challenger, for the aggressor state? I don't think so. It would only encourage further expectations. So yes, we are probably closer to a nuclear conflict in Europe than even in the 50s. The Ukrainians would say it doesn't matter, we will not give up, even if they use it. Freedom for us has greater importance than peace. Some would say, I heard those opinions, that it's a matter of time. The question is when and not if.
When, if not if, what?
The use of some still keep using the tactical nuclear weapon. I mean, it doesn't change anything. I mean, tactical or not tactical or strategic. So yes, I mean, I'm not going to tell you this is not going to happen. It may. This is Russia, and so we have to demonstrate we are not going to be effectively blackmailed. Sanctions, we have to talk, and again, nuclear element confirms that this is a global problem, which means this is also a problem for China, for Turkey, for African countries. We are unprecedentedly using sanction policy against Russia, but this is only the EU and G7 exercise. The problem is that some other neighbors, important part of the world, is not sanctioning Russia. But now maybe they should ask themselves the question, because also the nuclear states, I don't think they are happy to see this tool being actually used.
And the type of propaganda that this is the Ukrainians doing a dirty bomb, so if there is a dirty bomb, it wasn't us. Do you think it's a credible threat, or rather part of this whole blackmail strategy?
I think we should, when we face those questions, we should come back to the facts. The Ukrainians demonstrated on different occasions, including from the 2014 credibility and the ability to self-limitation, some sort of responsibility. They are fighting their cause. They are active, but this is the responsible part of the war. What could they achieve technically? I mean, they also proved they are great fighters. I mean, the Ukrainian army is.
No, sorry, I didn't mean that they would use a dirty bomb. I meant that the Russians would use a dirty bomb to blame it on the Ukrainians.
Ah, okay, yeah, but because Minister Shoigu suggested that Ukrainians are using.
Yeah, but that's clearly.
I mean, the toolbox of Russia is again, it's not very much creative and innovative. We've seen this is the same stories like in the Finnish Winter War or war against Poland in the 20s. False flag operations. Yes, this may happen now. The story of the story. I mean, the talk of the town in Ukraine is the Kakhovska hydro power station and the risk of Russians exploding this whole thing. This would kill tens of thousands of people. They would simply the river the Dnipro River would create huge lake there in populated areas. Yes, again, but the consequent, the logic of your question is, should we then resign, give up? No, of course. We should only increase our pressure on Russia, our support to Ukraine, without giving up on diplomatic activity. Of course, the diplomacy. Every war ends with a new political design, peace treaty or a treaty or whatever. So we have to be ready. We have to be be flexible and to react immediately to the changing situation. This war will have different colors, and maybe the momentum would create something maybe unintended would happen, which would create a possibility to fix, to find a sustainable resolution.
Something unintended in Moscow, I mean.
Generally speaking.
But since you mentioned the hydro energy plant, and there have been already attacks on energy infrastructure, is this part of this new strategy, perhaps for the winter, to just destroy the energy supply and infrastructure for Ukraine?
Again, Russians made it clear that there was interview by new commander of this aggression, General Surovikin, 2 or 3 weeks ago, and he said, "I'm not going to continue wasting my troops. We have enough of means." I'm almost quoting him exactly. "We have enough of resources to destroy or to the state, the Ukrainian state." So now they have those targeted attacks on critical infrastructure. At this stage, this is energy infrastructure, but I wouldn't exclude that next stage would be something else, like I don't know, railway or highway or other elements. They believe they can break the state, the kind of the back office of the conflict from the Ukrainian side, and then this would produce victory for Russia. I mean, it's difficult for me to understand the Russian logic, but anyway, this is heavy and this is hard. Including in Kyiv, you would have districts without electricity and water supply already. We have Zhytomyr or Vinnytsia or Khmelnytsky. They are dependent on one. The system, like most of our energy systems, it's not diversified in a way. It's not easy to substitute supplies to one city by redirecting flows from the other city. I mean, the system was not designed to survive this sort of attacks. So now we are intensively working with international partners to help Ukrainians reconstruct some nerves of the system, because otherwise we may face new wave of refugees. You can survive the noise of explosions, the fires, etc. But when there is no heating, there is no water, and you have kids, you have family, you have elderly people, it becomes problem. So we again, let's not be naive. We are still far from victory, and it will take sacrifice. But again, it's much cheaper than than the consequences of our failure of us losing the sovereign Ukraine.
How does the coordination among Western allies there on the ground work, like between you and other colleague ambassadors? Do you prioritize some areas, or how does it work in practice?
Short answer is that there is room for improvement. But the longer answer is that the space of needs is huge, and whatever we can do, the risk of overlapping is limited. Ukraine is a big country, first of all. So, for example, Estonia is reconstructing schools in Zhytomyr, but there are so many schools to reconstruct. Denmark is focusing on Mykolaiv. They have this regional approach. We are providing those modular towns for refugees. Somebody sponsors. There is German foundation that brings food to distributes food. Also, Turkey they have mobile kitchens, thousands of ratios meals a day, and I hope that there is some coordinative center in all this endeavor, maybe in Brussels or New York or Geneva, not in Kyiv, to my understanding. But I don't think it's a big issue. The amount, the scale of needs is huge, and everyone can do something. If a country cannot, for different reasons, supply arms, they can probably send some food or blankets or specialists. The issue with energy infrastructure also is the deficit of engineers. But now, how you can find engineers ready to work in a conflict zone? But maybe there are some. We were attempting to reconstruct Afghanistan, and worse country, worse in terms of the risk of the security setup.
And since you mentioned reconstruction, is this the appropriate time to talk about long-term reconstruction, or would you prefer that efforts are focused on, as you said, like reconnecting districts to power grids, repairing the damage done, so that people can still live in these cities under siege?
I think that the government of Ukraine is right to work intensively already on post-war phase. There's never too early for reconstruction. When the war ends, we will at least decide on the structure, the financial and procedural structure. It's a big question now. Originally, the government came up with this idea of rapid reconstruction fund. I believe it was called, the Ukrainian design with some international supervision, and countries donating, or international financial institutions donating money to this mechanism, and then they would have tenders, procurements, etc. I think this is gone now, and I think international countries and donors, generally speaking, are looking for procurement agents. Will use probably World Bank or EBRD or EIB transparency toolbox, and would use and would then buy things Ukraine would say she needs. my German colleague says they think of a fund in Germany for companies accredited, like the Brits also have it, and they operate in different globally. So it's already a progress if we decide about the structure of the administrative financial structure of the reconstruction. Then we'll have to look for companies and also, you know, President Zelensky said we are not going to rebuild Ukraine. We are going to build better Ukraine. That it's an interesting concept, very ambitious. We'll see, but it's also a chance, and it's not completely unknown phenomenon to our countries. When we transformed after the communism, we usually, all our countries usually jumped to the next generation technological solutions, and some more developed countries were surprised to see us using, you know, smartphones to pay for apples or drinks, etc., etc., highways. So it's an interesting, I think, from the conceptual point of view. Also, it's interesting phase we are going to enter at some point. Hopefully, the sooner the better.
It also sounds a bit like Build Back Better for the Biden plan. I do want to open up for questions if we have in the room. Yes? I don't know what the system is. Do we have a microphone, or you just shout the question? You will be... No, there is a microphone coming.
We need the mic because we are broadcasting globally.
Thank you for the
Please
floor.
introduce yourself.
Dmitry Shkurko, National News Agency of Ukraine. Thank you so much, Ambassador, for that beautiful presentation. First of all, as Ukrainian, I want to say that we in Ukraine feel a greatest gratitude to the Polish people, and thank them for receiving our members of our families, in fact, of fighters who are fighting now against the Russian aggression. That, from my point of view, bring the bilateral relations between the Poland and Ukraine, between the states and the people, on the principally new level. Coming back to my question, the topic of this seminar is what Ukraine needs from European allies to successfully confront Russia. The answer, from my perspective, is pretty simple. The main thing we need the strong and united Europe. And that is the nature of my question. What in that new world, Ukraine, such countries as Ukraine and Poland, could do to preserve that strong and unity of Europe in that challenging circumstances? And a short comment, if I may. There was said that there could be some kind of compromises, some kind of defeat. From the Ukrainian point of view, I can say that there will be no defeat in any way, because already 96% of the Ukrainian population gave their answer to that proposal. There will be no defeat because even if Europe will be tied, Ukraine will still go in fighting. So that they will be fighting to the end, because this is not a question of, how to say, changing mindset. It's a question of survival. Thank you so much, and thank you for answering my question.
Thank you for your kind words. From my perspective, a close watcher of the events, I would like to thank you as a representative of this brave nation, because I have no doubts if you failed, this war would reach my home in Warsaw already. They would not stop on the Ukrainian-Polish border. So you saved we are in a very comfortable, the Western states, in a comfortable situations. We are not dying. We are not sending our husbands, sons, and fathers to the front lines. What we are expected to do is to send supplies to the Ukrainian fighters. They are saving. Some specialists, I talked the other day, I talked to a military expert. He said, already now, Ukraine bought 5 years of peace for Europe. The damage among the military, the troops, the equipment in Russian ranks, they would need 5 years to rebuild. And in some aspects, they are unable to rebuild because they are so dependent on imported elements, chips, whatever. They are unable to rebuild tanks, airplanes, etc. So, thank you, Ukraine. Secondly, I mean, we are unprecedentedly united on one hand. If you go back to the January, February, March, and compare to what we have now, if we were told back then that EU will have 9 packages of sanctions on Russia, would you believe it? No way. Rammstein 4th was the last one, or 3rd? Yeah. NATO members supplying non-NATO member with top advanced technologies. The intelligence sharing with non-NATO countries is advanced to the, I guess, to the maximum. So of course we are doing too little and too late in terms of consolidation, determination, and unity around Ukraine. But this is unprecedented what's going on. All the countries understood immediately that this is not local thing, peripheral, like we did this mistake with in case of Russian invasion on Georgia 2008. We thought, I mean, we are sorry, but it's far away. So I'm a cautious optimist, as some say, but there is always room for improvement. And we met yesterday our Perm rep to NATO, Tomasz Cichocki. We are going to meet our Perm rep to the EU, Ambassador Andrzej Sadoś. Their work here in Brussels shows that every now and then you need to convince the allies. There are differences in nuances, but important nuances, and you have to keep your attention, your focus, and think creatively. And your comment, of course, we are on the same page. There is no way Ukraine would accept capitulation after what happened. I was showing by theoretically discussing if we convinced somehow miraculously President Zelensky, some countries, not Poland, to capitulate, what would be the outcome? There would be no sustainable outcome anyway. The momentum for resolution will come through the battlefield. That's the pessimistic or optimistic, whatever. This will be decided on the battlefield. And now we have to focus on securing the most advantageous framework for Ukraine to start at some point peace negotiations.
I think we have another question, 1, 2. Okay. Maybe we pull them because we're running out of time. No.
Yeah. Hello, everybody. I'm Frédéric Moreau. I'm a French lawyer established in Brussels. I was struck by your answer. What Ukraine needs the more is European unity. And Mr. Ambassador, you said that on the field in Ukraine there was room for improvement between the ambassadors of the European countries. Could you elaborate on that, please?
Hello, Robert Schelle, independent analyst, but formerly NATO and Polish diplomat. I share, Ambassador, your positive evaluation how the international community, including in the Brussels bubble, has moved. But the truth is, there is still a long way to go. And I'm just curious because, we have, those who kind of try to improve the understanding of the situation here. Sometimes frustrated. I wonder how frustrated must be, Ukrainians about it. In spite of all this progress, prospect of integrating in the EU, of course, military support, you mentioned a number of factors. They are really important and so on. But still, the basic, almost kind of philosophical point is that for many people here, it's different in Warsaw and in Vilnius and other places. This war is not yet considered to be fully a European war. So I'm personally, I'm just lost. What else the Ukrainians need to do? What else needs to happen? What kind of war crimes and the threats. So sometimes one even feels that, Ukrainians has been almost too successful in the sense that, they've been doing all the things that many people did not consider happen. So maybe you have some kind of prescription, how to shake that tree, which still needs shaking, I believe.
Okay, thank you.
In Kyiv, there is this peculiarity. We have G7 ambassadorial club. G7 countries decided long time ago that they should get more involved in transformation reforms in Ukraine, and it's highly appreciated, but it has some side effects. The 7 embassies are kind of closely working together, and the rest is kind of out of is behind the pace, the speed of and intensity and details of that work, and it's not always productive. G7 is a great club, but none of the countries is Ukraine's neighbor. The crisis proved, among other things, importance. It's a universal rule: importance of neighbors. Sometimes, I mean, Russia as a neighbor is also proved to be important in the wrong way. Poland, other countries, in a good way, and we have EU delegation, but again, there are very important players: Turkey, now UK, Canada, the US. They are not EU countries, so I sometimes I feel like we could have more regular, frequent meetings in Kyiv and discuss, coordinate better. But on the other hand, we all have limited teams now. We evacuated most of our personnel, everyone. We are so busy with everyday technical issues. Warsaw calling me to fix the ban on, I don't know, corn, and then Ukrainian government calling me to call Warsaw to fix the other thing. So I'm not sure. I don't think this this situation I'm describing is coming from us ambassadors missing something. This is really, it's really hard now to work as a diplomat with less people, less resources, and more tasks and challenges. Plus, maybe I'm wrong person to ask, because maybe it's actually Brussels or New York where those things are coordinated. I'm sure I'm not aware actually of many things happening in terms of support to Ukraine, because I'm not coming to those Rammstein or EU conferences on sanctions and support, or in international financial institutions.
And on convincing the public about what else does Ukraine need
Yeah,
to
no,
do?
this is really hard question. I hope that it wouldn't. The Bucha factor. We discussed the Bucha factor. It had this positive effect that people were shocked and then step up to. But I'm not sure that new new sufferings would work this way. We had Olenivka, this prisoners camp, horrific crime, and actually, you know, in Polish news you would find it, but then in some others, not necessarily. The people were shocked. I was actually shocked that journalists started again calling me after Kyiv was hit by 2 or 3 rockets, October 10th. But I said, look, guys, Kharkiv, Dnipro, Zaporizhia have daily, for months, they are daily rocketed, and actually it's new. It's nothing new. Nothing has changed. So why you are calling me when you notice that, you know, this playground was? I mean, people are dying in big cities. Kharkiv is not a, you know, it's not a village. So again, this is the wrong side of this human potential to adjust. We adjusted to those terrors, to this tragedy, and we have conflicts and terror in other parts of the world. We have our own crisis with inflation, with gas, with. So I'm optimistic, but I don't want to fool you that, you know, we can react. What one of the unintended consequences, you know, if Russia's intention was to interrupt the Euro integration of Ukraine, to compromise on sovereignty, etc., this aggression created a top influential leader, created a framework for President Zelensky to be able to call. He's the most popular, so actually the Russian action was counterproductive in this sense. They produced a top leader of Ukraine who is most effective when he calls the French parliament. He has this amazing understanding what works in different publics. When he calls Polish parliament or Polish government, he knows which tones should be played. In the U.S. Congress, different. And so maybe the answer is this amazing Ukrainian human potential, creativity, determination. I think we should simply, if we are not sure what to do, we should check what the Ukrainians are doing and and repeat and follow.
Thank you so much. Can we still take one question, or? Oh gosh. All right, last round of questions. Make it quick.
Yeah, David Abiyagut, a journalist based in Brussels for Argus Media. I was wondering, I mean, you can sort of zoom in on different areas of EU politics that affect Ukraine, and obviously energy is just one of those. Yeah, and you can even further zoom in. I suppose the discussions now on price caps and all these types of things are. But one issue is common voluntary. Obligatory purchasing of gas. You know, obviously Hungary, for its own reasons, which, you know, we don't know exactly, but we can suspect, is against that. But Poland, you know, your minister Anna Moskva came out against that. I mean, this affects negatively, doesn't it, on how we deal with Russia and how we deal with reducing their resources to fight in Ukraine.
We also had a lady here.
Thank you. Anita Singh-Paic, European External Action Service. First of all, thank you to the organizers for bringing your ambassador here, because it's always very important for us, the Schuman Roundabout, to hear from the people on the ground and their insights. You mentioned the sustainable deal. You said you haven't heard any credible offers here, but you, knowing Ukrainians, knowing Ukraine, living with them through the war for the past months, and also you've been posted to Russia before, so you know them, you know the regime, you know now what they are capable of. You surely have some personal opinions on how the sustainable, just peace should look like, because Ukraine after the war will be a different nation. It's already becoming a different country. It will be a frontal country, so geostrategic environment will be different. What's the solution from your personal opinion? And I would like to just give to my colleague.
Just $1 million
Sorry.
question.
I hope it is the last question. Your Excellency, Mr. Ambassador, I'm happy that you come here. We're in Warsaw. We're proud of you that you stay there during the siege. And my question is, we hear here in Brussels and Warsaw that the common Belarus-Russian exercise are now coming into force in Belarus. So my question is, how could you assess the possibility of the second invasion from Belarus territory on Ukraine? Thank you. And also, if I may, pozdrowienia z KSAP-u.
Thank you so much. Well, on the gas energy issue, I'm not going to answer for the Hungarians. I mean, I'm not the right person. In our case, we did our homework, and even better, we've been warning, and different governments of Poland were warning the Germans particularly that you are bringing trouble on your heads with Nord Stream, etc. Now we fixed our at least with gas. We diversified and we have full stocks. Why we should suffer from actually being the only ones who understood what should be the right way 2 decades ago. So I don't think in our case this is somehow challenging the common approach to Russia. But and on Hungary, you know, this is hot topic in Ukraine. They have there are controversies, but to some extent I think this is unfair. One recent case is this EU military advisory mission. Sometimes bigger states are using actually Hungary to attract all the criticism, but actually it's not Hungary. Hungary at some usually I think there is difference between rhetoric, their narrative, their messaging, and the reaction. They never blocked sanctions. They never, even if they didn't join the mission, the EU military mission, they didn't block it. So of course, even us, we are publicly talking to the Hungarians that we don't agree on some things, but it's more complicated, I believe. And if the only problem was Hungary in the subject we are discussing, I think we would be happy actually that there are bigger issues, also transatlantic issues. On my vision of the future, it will not be a direct answer. My understanding is that Russia is carefully choosing her victims, and it's not by accident that she is attacking states with weak institutions, with some identity, domestic debates, countries with issues on corruption, rule of law, etc. If we really want to have sustainable peace in Europe, we should help countries to build strong institutions, resilience against corruption, by seriously offering EU NATO membership. I'm not saying membership. I mean, only if the homework is really done. Only the EU NATO membership, but not necessarily. But I don't see anything else may make countries like Georgia, Moldova, Ukraine to transform. And aggression is one thing, but reforms, this economic, social front is no less important in case of Ukraine. Let's be honest when we discuss this issue, and if Ukraine uses this crisis to fix things that are independent from Russia, then this would definitely contribute to stability in our. Of course, Russia is the first country that need to be fixed, but I don't believe in us Poles giving Russians textbook how to live beautiful life. I mean, this has to come from within. We appreciate a lot of help and expertise we received during the 90s, 2000s, but at the end of the day, look, when we began in the early 90s, Ukraine was much richer and stronger country than Poland. Before COVID, we became 6 times richer than Ukraine. So at the end of the day, it's really up on us, Lithuanians, Czechs, and others, and the Russians. But I'm less optimistic about the Russians. But in case of Ukraine, it's doable. It's doable. Then the Belarusian question. I'm sorry to say it again. The answer is when, not if. This is coming. This will be the day when the Belarusian troops cross the border. Will be the last day of President Lukashenko, because either the troops would turn their barrels toward him, or the Russian mentor will get rid of him, because after Belarus enters the regular fighting, there is no point for President Putin to keep Lukashenko. I mean, he becomes useless. But it doesn't help us in Kyiv particularly. There are different scenarios. I think that one of them, if we follow General Surovikin's interview, this may be more about cutting off the communications and not so much attempting to grab Kyiv. Again, this is huge city. It's with huge river. It's not that easy to grab to get control over the city and the centers of command and management. But cutting the roads and the railways would be a problem. But this time we all understand that this is going to happen, so the Ukrainians are much better prepared. They defeated Russians 8 months ago, and now they are even better prepared. So the Belarusian front would reopen, but it would suffer again the defeat. I would be most intrigued about what happens next within Belarus.
Thank you so much. I think we ran a bit over time, but it was such a fascinating conversation. I didn't want to interrupt it. Thank you for organizing this event, and there will be now a panel with the panel discussion. Tune in next time. Thank you.